Hello everyone. Hi, what is up? It's me, Angie, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about more Taylor Swift. It's honestly one of my favorite things to do, so here we are. Today I just want to talk about my 3 favorite songs from each album. She is one of my favorite artists and she makes such good songs, so this was very hard to narrow it down to just 3 songs from each album because each album has way more than 3 songs that are my favorite on it. It was difficult, but I did it. But there's a caveat because I did have some honorable mentions for each album as well. So I mean, technically it's not my top 3, technically it's my top like 6 from each album, but in my head we're still gonna say it's top 3 because the rest are just honorable mentions. So let's get into it. Before I do, I want to remind you guys to please subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. I'd love you to stick around here with me on this channel. And also just thank you for being here in general though. I really appreciate it. I know you have many videos you're watching instead, so I appreciate you stopping by clicking on this video. I just appreciate being here. So thank you. Hello. Welcome. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about my favorite songs from each of Taylor Swift's albums. Of course, we get Debut, which a lot of people think is one of her weakest albums, which I kind of agree, but there is some bangers. There is some hits on this album, and Mystery was her first one. We just know from the start she was just destined to be a star. She had talent beyond her years. So for me, my top 3, my number 3 is Pictures to Burn off of Debut. Need I say more? Come on. My number 2 is Teardrops on My Guitar. That was one of the first songs I ever heard from Taylor Swift, and it was like mind-blowing. I was like, this song is so good! Just so wild to think that's who Taylor Swift was at one point in her life. But it's such a bop still. And number 1 for me is Should Have Said No. Should have said no. Should have gone home. Should have thought twice so you let it all go. Oh god. My honorable mentions, I just have 2 honorable mentions from this album. My first honorable mention is I'm Only Me When I'm With You. Definitely not my favorite song on the album. It definitely doesn't belong in the top 3, but it is still such a good song. And number 2 is Our Song. Same thing. Definitely not my favorite song on the album. Like Should Have Said No, Pictures to Burn. Like those songs are for sure meant to be the top 3. But I would say this is like number 4, and like number 5 is I'm Only Me When I'm With You. Such a good song. It's a cute one. Next we get Fearless, of course Fearless TV. That of course is the only one that we acknowledge in this household. Fearless, Taylor's version. So for me, number 3 is actually Fearless. It's just, it hits so good. Number 2 for me is Forever and Always. And number 1 is actually a vault track, which is Mr. Perfectly Fine. A vault track is my number 1. It's kind of weird to say because I have not known of this song as long as I've known the other songs, but this one is so sassy, so sarcastic, and it's just such a bop. My honorable mentions are 15, Jump Then Fall, and Untouchable, which of course is a cover, but still so good. Next up we have Speak Now, her album, which hopefully we'll get soon, the Taylor's version. I'm filming this quite ahead, so I kind of hope by the time this goes out we have some sort of announcements of when Speak Now is coming out. But for number 3, Last Kiss. It's just so beautiful, so raw. I listen to that song like honestly so much. It's quite relaxing. It's so simple but so beautiful. You just hear the heartbreak so much. Number 2 is The Story of Us. I feel like that song is so underrated. The music video is such a bop too. And then of course number 1 is Dear John. That is the best song on the album. Don't tell me otherwise. It just is, okay? Some honorable mentions are Better Than Revenge, Haunted. This was hard. I almost put Haunted in my top 3, but I couldn't figure out which one I would want to replace. So I would say Haunted is like number 4. And of course, Enchanted is another honorable mention. That song is so beautiful. Love it. Next up is Red TV. Red is such a strong album considering how maybe shaky it was perceived with critics and maybe even a lot of fans and maybe Taylor Swift herself. You could really tell that she was struggling with who she wanted to be as an artist. She was struggling as a 20-year-old, figuring herself out. This album really represented that, your 20s, and how confusing it can be, and for Taylor how confusing it was not only because of her dating life and figuring out who she wants to be as a woman, but also in a sense of what kind of music she wanted to create. She was at a tug of war with herself and with what she wanted to do and what kind of her label was telling her to do. Even though it may seem such a rocky album in terms of like vision, it still is one of her best albums she's ever written, I think because of how truthful she was to herself of being confused. Like that really transcends. So basically for me this was such a hard album to pick my top 3 because all the songs on there are just so good, especially the Taylor's version. So for me, My number 3 had to be Holy Ground. If you know me, you know I love this song so much. I kind of talk about it a lot, actually. It's one of my favorite songs. I think it's underrated, but I go back to it all the time. I love the upbeatness to it and the kind of maturity that the song holds. Number 2 is The Last Time. Another song that's very underrated that no one talks about enough. I love that song so much. And of course, number 1 is All Too Well, because that was just the best song ever. Now, you might notice it's not the All Too Well 10-minute version, and that's because as much as I love the All Too Well 10-minute version, I really love the conciseness of the original version, and with the longer version, we kind of lost the punch that the original version had because of its length. Of course, we got more details, of course, we got more insight in the whole breakup, but I do like the original version just a little bit more because of the conciseness. We lose some of the punch, like I said, with the 10-minute version. Though I don't get me wrong, I do freaking love that song a lot too. Some honorable mentions are Come Back, Be Here, I Bet You Think About Me, and Treacherous. I also really love like the vault tracks. The vault tracks are really good on this album, like Message in a Bottle, Forever Winter, The Very First Night. Those are obviously so good too. For 999, this was hard because my third place is so wishy-washy. I go between these 2 songs, so I guess I'll just tell you what they were. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put Clean in there or All You Had to Do Is Stay. I ultimately chose All You Had to Do Is Stay, but Clean is so good, but also so is All You Had to Do Is Stay. It's such a bop. All you had to do was stay, hey, how we upon your hand, like, so good. I think my third song is All You Have to Do Is Stay. My number 2 is actually a song that's not on the original album, it's on the deluxe, and that song is Wonderland. I love that song so much. I feel like it does not get talked about enough. It's such a good deep cut. And my number 1 is Style. My favorite song on the album is Style. I love that fucking song. Though I do want to say Wonderland does creep up to number 1, bringing Style back down to number 2 every once in a while. This album is just so good. They're all just 10s. They're 10s. They're dime songs, so it's so hard to choose. But some honorable mentions are I Know Places and Welcome to New York, because Welcome to New York is the best album opener. I fucking love it so much. Next up we have Reputation. What a time to be alive. I was not a true Swiftie at this point, but I really wish I was so I had been there when she dropped this album. This was also really hard to choose, and my number 3 changes every day. My number 3 goes between New Year's Day and Dancing with Our Hands Tied. Do with what you will with that information. Then my number 2 is Getaway Car. Come on, man, that song should have been a single. We should have got a music video. We should have got more from that song because it's so good. And my number 1 is Delicate. My favorite song of all time from the Rep album is Delicate. Oh fuck, I relate to it so much. So much. It's so good. Some honorable mentions are Key of My Heart and Dress. So then we get to Lover, one of my favorite albums ever by Taylor Swift. For Lover, my number 3 is Death by a Thousand Cuts. Need I say more? That bridge, her breath control is unbelievable. I love the whole story behind that song, how she wrote it because she thought she couldn't write breakup songs anymore, and the fact that she wrote one of her best breakup songs ever when she was still happy in a relationship is a testament to how talented she freaking is. Oh, she's so talented. Number 2 for me of Lover is Daylight. That song actually holds a very special place in my heart. It just has a lot of personal meaning to me. And number 1 is, of course, Cruel Summer. Come on. I Love You, Ain't That the Worst Thing You Ever Heard. That's all I have to say from that song. That's all I have to say. Some honorable mentions are Afterglow, Cornelia Street, Paper Rings. I mean, Miss Americana. There's so many songs on this album that are so good. Which is why it's such a good freaking album, you guys. Next up is Folklore. Number 3 is Cardigan. Number 2 is August. This was hard, but number 2 is August, though it almost was number 1. I had to put The Last Great American Dynasty at number 1, but I'm honestly kind of thinking now, I'm looking at this, maybe August is number 1. Those two switch a lot. The Great American Dynasty, the fact that it's about this home, it's just that she bought, the history of it all is just so cool. And I listen to that song so much, but I do think I listen to August just a little bit more. So maybe that's number 1, but we'll just say today that it's number 2. So yeah, number 1 and number 2 definitely flip-flop, but for today, The Last Great American Dynasty is number 1 and number 2 is August. Some honorable mentions is The One. Mirror Ball, and Betty. Then we get Evermore. Evermore is such a good album. Evermore is probably my second favorite album at this point. Oh, it might be number one though. Evermore is just up there in my top 3 favorite albums ever right now. But lately, Evermore is just growing on me more and more and more, and it has such great songs. My top 3 are Champagne Problems, Long Story Short, and my number 1 is Right Where You Left Me. Those songs are so strong. So strong. Right Where You Left Me is a freaking bonus track, and to think that we would have maybe never gotten that song is so crazy to me. And of course my favorite song on the album is a bonus track. Like, I just, mind-blowing. Imagine if we never got that song. That she just held this song, this masterpiece of a song that we didn't even know about. Right Where You Left Me. Some honorable mentions are 'Tis the Damn Season and Willow, of course. We got about 500 versions of Willow, but still a good song. And of course, we're up to the newest album, which is Midnights. For me, number 3 is Would've, Coulda, Should've. Such a powerful song. There's no words to describe that song. That song is a masterpiece. It's so, so good. Number 2 is Maroon. She really pulls out her dictionary, her thesaurus, to choose every other version of the word red or maroon, like scarlet, like it's a bop. And number 1 is You're On Your Own, Kid. That's my favorite song from the full album, but it was very hard to choose these 3 songs because Paris and Bejeweled and Karma are all very close together with the top 3. I probably would put Paris, oh my god, maybe at number 4 or maybe even at, like, depending on the day, number 1. Like, that's such a good song. I love that. Like, I love the poppiness of that song so much. Listen, all these songs could change, you know, a day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. Like, it's so hard to say definitively these are my favorite songs ever from each album, because every song on the album, it just has its own special unique quality that make it so amazing. Maybe I'll make this video again in like a year and maybe we'll see what's changed. I'm sure some songs will have changed in a year from now. Music just is ever growing and ever changing, and as you get older, things in your mind change perspectives. But either way, Taylor Swift just makes such good songs. She's an incredible songwriter, incredible artist. It really is so hard to freaking choose my top 3 from each album. Like, how do you choose? It was hard, but I did it. I would love to hear you guys' version of this in the comments below. What are your top 3 songs from every album? Let me in the comments below. I would love to compare notes. That's it. That's all I have for you today for this video. Thank you guys so much for hitting me today. I feel like I just talked your ear off. I feel like I'm talking for so long. So I'm gonna get going. I love you guys so much. And yeah, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like before you leave, and I'll see you guys in my next video, I hope. Okay, bye!